Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hang out with this nerd.
Ted.
Today we're going to discuss 5 ways to defeat the monster without defeating the monster.
Hey guys, jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get RPG tips as well as learn how to game with us.
So Ted had this great idea about doing a video on defeating monsters without actually defeating the monster.
So in most gaming systems, when you come up upon a monster, a bad guy, there are a pile of hit points and a pile of abilities, and you just have to kind of weed through it. And
there's only one way to win.
There's usually only one way to win. And, you know, we've been doing this kind of thing for years, and it's kind of like, all right, well, sometimes you want to find alternate ways of doing things. And, you know, yeah, there's the whole, can I push it off a cliff or that kind of stuff. And in normal circumstances, those things work great. But what if you have to come up with specific ideas to bring down said creature?
Now, this is always really dangerous because your players will never do what you expect them to do. They never figure out the things that you think are obvious, and they come up with things that you would never have thought of.
It is true. So I feel as a DM, it's always worthwhile to give players clues, reward creativity, and if they come up with something that seems feasible, let it work. Don't be like, nope, you got to do it my way.
So I believe we came up with about 5 ways to essentially take on, basically 5 ways to take on a monster and beat them without actually beating them.
So in a Netflix show that Dave and I have watched, and there's a review for that, it, you know, either already came out or will come out, so be on the lookout for it. But there's monsters that that were summoned via totem, and the totem is kind of where their heart is. And if you just keep chopping away at them, they reassemble, they regenerate, they put themselves back together without much issue. You have to get that totem out of their body and break it.
Yes.
Until you do that, that monster keeps fighting.
So, like, in that instance, there's a couple things you could do. One is, like, I would probably go, all right, if someone casts a shatter spell on the monster and it fails a saving throw, then it's probably that totem is going to break it and it's going to be done. Or they have to kind of do what was done in the show and dig the totem out and then break the totem.
Right.
So that would be like an interesting scenario you could do where the monster is tied to a specific item. Defeating the monster means defeating the item, not the monster itself.
Correct. And there's probably other ways to use that item mechanic. It just depends upon what creativity you want to actually use.
And now, in one of Ted's games he ran, now, he had an interesting monster that he made up and wanted to use. There wasn't a specific win condition, so he kind of let us come up with a win condition. And the idea was nature was kind of being corrupted, and that corrupted nature was attacking us. So when one of the players came up with an idea of, well, what if we heal the nature? Then, you know, then Ted was like, you know what, that's actually a good idea. I think it fits in with what I was going for. It was based off the Oath of the Ancients, Paladins, Oaths. And it totally fits. So he's like, all right, I'm going to let this fly. So in this case, the antithesis of what you would believe defeats the monster is indeed the thing that defeats the monster. In this case, you let us use basically like healing magic on it to basically, I don't want to say damage it because it didn't damage it. It actually restored it to its natural form, and which made it ungrumpy, essentially.
No, I mean, there is some precedence to this dating back all the way to 2nd edition with the Nilbog.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's not like I broke new territory, but it was something that Nathan Nerdarchy said, you know, I'm going to do this and see what happens. And I'm like, wow, that's a really cool idea. I'd hate to ruin that situation. So I'm going to let this work. I had a couple ideas of how the encounter could have gone, but it was designed to be a really challenging thing. And once they started going down this path, I'm like, I really like this. And you know, the paladin gets in on it, the cleric gets in on it. I don't know whether David guessed or not.
I think we actually ended up using like healing potions too, as grenades. So like, you know, it gave us several like interesting things to do, and it actually turned what Ted was probably planned for a difficult encounter into kind of an easy one, but it was fun and it was interesting and got the players engaged.
And as we've talked about more other times, that it's going to be a far more memorable encounter for the players than a pile of hit points.
Absolutely.
So the next thing that I kind of came up with was the concept of like the timer or some kind of ritual going on. So instead of actually having to fight the beast, it's more like survive while an NPC or the caster of the group is performing a ritual, or someone else is doing the ritual, and you just have to survive for X number of rounds or whatever have you. And this way, it doesn't really matter whether you're hitting or not, whether you're dodging or not. It's just survive.
Well, yeah, so it can kind of like be you have to distract it or you're protecting the thing that's going on to make sure it keeps going on. Well, you can flip this around. You can make it the other way. Like the monsters you're trying to get past, like it really isn't the goal to defeat them. They're just in the way. So you could do this either way. You could be, all right, you could be playing defense and keeping your ritual going, or you have important NPCs or certain characters do particular tasks that the only way to save the day is for those tasks to be completed, and you have to keep the enemies off of them.
Right.
And it could even be like literally the DM could do something where it's like unlimited monsters will just keep coming until they finish the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and maybe in some ways it could even be a skill challenge where maybe that some of the combat aspects will affect that skill challenge as well.
You're trying to shut down a portal. You're trying to trap the NPC in a circle, that kind of stuff.
Yes, exactly. And again, the other thing could happen the other way. They're trying to open a portal. You have to get through them. There's unlimited number of monsters, so you have to figure out how you're going to get through the sea of monsters to stop the ritual. So it's it makes the fighting and killing the monsters pointless, and it doesn't even matter because that's not the real objective.
So it would come to the point where rolling damage becomes inconsequential. If you're fighting a whole bunch of little things, it's like, all right, for every attack that hits, you kill a monster or
17 of
two.
them.
However many, depending upon what the size of the creatures are. But you try to make that aspect of the game less important. Then comes to your turn. Do you actually make progress on the circle? You need so many checks or whatever have you.
There is a trap in this though. And that is the players that will just keep fighting, and they will not realize that they cannot achieve the objective by killing monsters.
That
is the difficult part.
It doesn't matter how many times you say there is an unlimited number of monsters. There is an infinite number of monsters. That sometimes players will not hear that word, and they just see a mass of enemies in front of it, and they say, okay, well, my guy's designed to kill monsters, so I'm going to go kill monsters.
Yeah, the key really is to figure out how to stress to them what the real objective is.
So that's when it comes, like with all of these things, giving clues and guidance based off of the character's intelligence, not necessarily the player's choices. So the next thing is, kind of trap it, position it, get the monster to somewhere that you want it to be. Whether it be like there's an ambush spot that you've already set up. There's a magic circle that just needs, the mage to snap his fingers and the spell goes up. Or you could be fighting on a cliff's edge, and this monster is far more powerful than your players can handle, and the only way to survive is to get it to go off the cliff.
Or it's the case that they need it alive, and it's not something that can be knocked out. So they have to trap it somehow, and actually they'll fail if they kill it. It'll become useless to them, and the bad stuff will happen. So in this case, they have to figure out how to hurt it, how to trap it, and just sheer violence isn't going to be enough. For whatever reason, maybe it's a construct or it's undead or something, but they need it alive, and it's not something they can just knock out.
Perhaps it's the other side of the coin. Instead of it being far more than they're able to handle, what if it is like a chosen creature of a deity or some blessed thing, or they're just a low-level adventuring party and someone has hired them to track down a special pet or whatever have you. They can't fight it, they have to bring it back alive, and you can't use I'll just knock it out, it's too weak. Like, even if you try to do subdual damage.
Or, you know, like you said, if it is some kind of like celestial creature or a favorite thing of a god, it's an actual insult to that god to bring any harm upon it whatsoever. So, you know, even if you're just knocking it out, it's going to be an affront to that god, and you're not going to want to deal with the ramifications of that.
Right.
Now, we have two more, and I'm going to say they're actually the same thing. And it is the concept of a monster that is too powerful to defeat, and I have two examples I would use with this. One is the Sphinx's Riddle, and you have to solve the Sphinx's Riddle or it eats you, right? And there's nothing you can do. You're just not equipped to take on this power level of a monster, so you have to figure out the riddle. That is the only way through this challenge for you. That is the only way to defeat the monsters. The other one is the idea of, you know, the fairy tale, like Billy Goat's Gruff. The idea that you encounter the troll that is too strong for you, and there's really, you know, there's only a couple ways through. There's probably a bunch of ways through, but the idea is it's too powerful for you to defeat. And so what does the Billy Goat do? It basically kind of like it kind of like pushes off the problem to the next Billy Goat, to the next brother, until finally it gets to the brother that can defeat the troll, right? Well, in this case, you know, you're probably not going to use that. The other way would be like, you know, you have to pay toll to the troll to get by. You have to buy your way through. But there could be other ways. Two of them are just tricking him, which is what the Billy Goats did eventually, or paying your way through. But there might be other solutions as well. Maybe you have to bring him something or a token or a thing. Or, you know, maybe he's a thoughtful troll and you have to defeat him in a game of chess or chance or something like that. But you could do something more interesting than just having a combat.
So here's one that you definitely fall into things that absolutely fit into the skill challenge or the charisma checks, you know, diplomacy, intimidation, that kind of stuff. Now, if something is clearly far more powerful than you, I think intimidation checks are going to be a lot more of a challenge. But if you've got someone who's set up, designed for that particular situation, it could be for a very interesting encounter. I offer warning that when intimidation checks go bad, and you know that you can't defeat the thing in combat, it might spell for TPK.
Yeah, there's an extra level, added level of threat there. And probably the other problem too with this encounter, much like the too many monsters to defeat problem, is getting your players to understand they cannot defeat this monster, because unfortunately a lot of players have been trained to think that every encounter they encounter is an encounter that is equivalent to their level or lesser that they can defeat, instead of, you know, thinking of another solution. So that may be a bit of a tough spot for you to figure out as the DM. So
it comes down to how much do you know your players, and are they prepared to handle the non-combat situations. And there is always, you know, the surplus extra number 6 of, you know what, this monster is beyond you. There is no way to defeat it. There's no way to get beyond it. You need to just run away. So you can always throw those type of things out there just to, you know, kind of scare your players and know that they're living in a real and breathing world, and that not everything is designed specifically tailored to them.
So with that, guys, in the comments below, what do you think of these suggestions? Are you using them in the game? You give us examples. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can support us over on Patreon.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.
Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hang out with this nerd.
Ted.
Today we're going to discuss 5 ways to defeat the monster without defeating the monster.
Hey guys, jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get RPG tips as well as learn how to game with us.
So Ted had this great idea about doing a video on defeating monsters without actually defeating the monster.
So in most gaming systems, when you come up upon a monster, a bad guy, there are a pile of hit points and a pile of abilities, and you just have to kind of weed through it. And
there's only one way to win.
There's usually only one way to win. And, you know, we've been doing this kind of thing for years, and it's kind of like, all right, well, sometimes...
But basically, 5 ways to take on a monster and beat them without actually beating them.
So in a Netflix show that Dave and I have watched, and there's a review for that, it, either already came out or will come out, so be on the lookout for it. But there's monsters that were summoned via totem, and the totem is kind of where their heart is. And if you just keep chopping,
and they come up with things that you would never have thought of.
it is true. So I feel as a DM, it's always worthwhile to give players clues, reward creativity, and if they come up with something that seems feasible, let it work. Don't be like, nope, you got to do it my way.
So I believe we came up with about 5 ways to essentially take on.
Sometimes you want to find alternate ways of doing things, and yeah, there's the whole can I push it off a cliff or that kind of stuff. And in normal circumstances, those things work great. But what if you have to come up with specific ideas to bring down said creature?
Now, this is always really dangerous because your players will never do what you expect them to do. They never figure out the things that you think are obvious.